annually. Persistent cedi depreciation increases the cost of living with higher prices for fuel, transportation, utilities, food, and so on. Many governments, including ours, are facing a very difficult economic crisis that requires solutions that must come out of the box. How do we stop the depreciation? How do we stop the persistent increases in the prices of fuel and utility? We have been thinking about this long and hard. When you think about it, ladies and gentlemen, the challenge that we face is a limited access to foreign exchange, as our foreign exchange reserves have depleted and the demand has not fallen, but the demand has been relatively steady for that lower foreign exchange reserves. And so the demand exceeds the supply, and then you have depreciation. So the thinking that we said, okay, how do we get in more foreign exchange reserves for the country to stem this gap between the demand and the supply? One of the things that occurred to us and to me was, why aren't we able to accumulate reserves in terms of gold? We have focused on accumulating reserves over the years in terms of US dollars and other currencies. But gold is a foreign exchange reserve. And the unique feature of gold is that we are endowed with gold. We produce gold in Ghana, which means you don't have to export gold to earn that foreign exchange. You have to export cocoa, you have to export timber and other goods, foods and so on, to earn the foreign exchange. With gold, immediately you dig it up. It is foreign exchange. So you are essentially digging up foreign exchange. So I said, let me check how much gold we have accumulated in Ghana thus far. And when you look at the data between independence and 2021, we had accumulated just 8 tons of gold. 8 tons. We are one of the largest gold-producing countries in the world. But we had accumulated 8 tons. When I looked at the United States, they have over 8,000 tons. The IMF, many other countries in Europe are dealing with gold reserves of over 2,000 tons. And we have 8 tons of gold. We proceeded to say, the Bank of Ghana, we suggested to the central bank to begin a gold purchase program, systematically to build up our reserves in gold. And the gold program started last year, and it is proceeding quite well. But to address this fundamental challenge that we all face of the persistent depreciation and its impact on fuel, in utility prices, food, and so on, government has opted to implement a policy of using our gold to buy oil products. That is something new, and it is the barter of sustainably mined gold for oil. And this is one of the most important economic policy changes in Ghana since independence. If we implement it as we have envisioned, it will fundamentally change our balance of payments and significantly reduce the persistent depreciation of our currency with its associated increases in fuel, electricity, water, transport, and food prices. Why would it stop these persistent increases in fuel, water, and food prices? It is very simple. This is because the exchange rate, whether you are looking at the spot exchange rate or the forward exchange rate, will no longer directly enter the formula for the determination of fuel or utility prices once we implement this, because the purchases of fuel and for transport and utility is going to be in cedis. It's not going to be in dollars. So because you're buying that fuel with gold, that is where the exchange is. But once you sell that fuel, you sell it in cedis. And then the Bank of Ghana uses those cedis to buy more gold and buy the oil, you sell it, and then it goes around in that way. But essentially, you are taking the exchange rate out of the equation. Today, our fuel prices are being priced at an exchange rate, a forward exchange rate of 19 cedis to the US dollar. Today, what we are paying at the pump is being priced at 19 cedis to the US dollar. So you can imagine when you price without the exchange rate in the formula, which is what is going to happen. We've already done some simulations. Then you will see that the prices of fuel will come down. And similarly, for PURC, if the exchange rate doesn't enter the equation, which it should, the transactions will be in cedis. Similarly, then electricity tariffs will also have to come down. Because what you are now going to see, because one of the biggest, when you look at what drives fuel price increases, what drives electricity price increases, and therefore the cost of doing business, it's fundamentally the exchange rate. Major driver of these price increases. So if you are able to have a handle on the exchange rate movement, you are able to lower the depreciation of the currency at the same time as you lower this. And you are going to lower the depreciation of the currency because instead of the oil importers, especially the BDCs, going to the Bank of Ghana's window every few weeks to ask for foreign exchange to import oil, that one goes away.
Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia speaking at this year's New Year's School about the government's gold for oil policy, the first consignment of which has been exchanged for 4,000 metric tons of fuel, and that has been delivered. However, industry experts have raised concerns and they are asking government to disclose the actual quantity of gold that was exchanged for that quantity of fuel. So the Vice President spoke at that New Year's School program and essentially said the gold for oil policy is the best for the country looking at the current economic challenges. However, with the delivery of that first consignment of fuel, the prices at the pumps have not gone down, raising concerns about the sustainability of the policy. Civil society groups in the energy sector have been on the neck of government to come clear on the policy. So today, to some of the critical issues that are rising as a result of this development. In studio with me, Mr. Kwame Jantua, an energy expert, has joined us and he will be answering some of our questions and yours. Mr. Jantua, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Whether I'll be able to answer all your questions is debatable, but I will try my possible
Try his best, and you won't be here alone, even though you're physically here by yourself. On our Zoom platform, we'll have Adam Yakubu, who is a research and policy analyst at the Institute of Energy Security, also joining in our conversation. Adam, good morning. I'm sure that Adam is on the line there and will be picking his thoughts on this issue as well. To speak on the government side, we have Deputy Energy Minister, Mr. Andrew Sejapa Mensah, who is joining us via phone to also answer some of our questions and yours. Honorable Minister, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Perhaps we'll start with you then, since you're going to interpret what this government policy actually means.
Before we start, it's important that I correct my name. My name is not Andrew. It's Andrew.
Honorable Mensah, thank you. We'll start with the very obvious question. What's the plan here? The Vice President says that in the light of the recent situation that we find ourselves and the fact that the country does not have enough gold reserves, even though we are one of the major gold producing companies in the world, does not mean well for us. And he thinks that this is one of the ways that we can remedy the situation and also bring the prices of fuel down. What exactly is the goal here, if you can reiterate that for us?
Well, I guess that the objective, let me say good morning to Mr. Jatwa and my co-panelists as well.
Good morning.
Our cherished listeners. The objective is pretty much self-explanatory. Okay, if you listen to what the Vice President said, and I believe that what the industry has played out, two factors that clearly impact our petroleum prices at the pump is the global price of the commodity and the exchange rate. So that when there's limited exchange rate or forex that is available to fund the importation of the commodity, then the rules of demand and supply would then kick in, and your currency would depreciate. We've seen it consistently over the past year, especially when the cedi depreciated significantly against the dollar. And so it was important for us to begin to explore alternative ways of ensuring, one, fuel security, and also our ability to pay for it, such that the Ghanaian consumer gets some relief. And so the deliberations then led to us concluding that if we're not getting all the proceeds from our resource exports, which ordinarily would come into Bank of Ghana to help fund imports, then it was important to find alternative ways of ensuring that we are able to aggregate that resource here and then externalize it to either do the swap or sell that commodity to pay for suppliers who had no knowledge of how the trade would operate. So that's essentially the goal for our policy.
Right. So we are talking about making the Bank of Ghana's domestic gold purchase program the channel through which we are going to do this. Is that the case?
Well, of course, when the Bank of Ghana started the domestic gold purchase program in 2021, there was no intention to use it to fund gold necessarily. I mean, petroleum imports necessarily. It was intended to shore up our reserves just so that we can use it to support our balance of payments. And so now that it has become clear that the channel then to use to aggregate more of the gold, just so that we can use that gold to shore up our reserves to fund significantly the importation of petroleum products. That's the way that going forward is going to happen. Yes.
How much gold have we been able to get into the reserve since this program started, as you said, in 2021?
I wouldn't be in a position to provide the detail, but of course, because and so I do not get direct information as regards their foreign exchange position on a day-by-day basis. But the Bank of Ghana duly reports some of these things, okay? And so I'm sure that we'll get to know when the reporting timelines that they work with is provided. And
but are you able to tell us,
but I can tell you on authority that the first consignment that came in the test was paid through this program, and that PMMC is ramping up their gold purchases to support the program. And all the data that I've seen clearly shows that Ghana has sufficient enough gold in country that is generated year by year that can fund this program if Bank of Ghana is purchasing a portion of it. Okay, bear in mind that for the large-scale gold mining companies, they are required to only provide 20% and, of course, sell the 80% to meet their own obligations that are external. And the local artisanal miners then are required, as the law entitles government to do, to give government the right of first refusal to purchase the gold in country. Yes.
How much did we give in order to get this 40,000 metric tons of oil? How much gold did we
Again, I wouldn't know the details. You see, I frankly don't see, with all due respect, the relevance, really, because...
I beg your pardon, sir.
I said, with respect, I wouldn't know, one, okay, because Bank of Ghana is the we, the ministry and the office of the vice president, needed to have some engagements with them that then allows us to do this.
Is this not a partnership between the ministry, your ministry, and the Bank of Ghana, because it's gold involved?
It's not, the Ministry of Energy is not purchasing any petroleum products. BOST is a limited liability company owned by the government of Ghana that then, because of the ease that they can be asked to participate in the program, is the vehicle that the government is using, okay, to, as it were, support them to do their purchases through this program, okay. And so, yes, we had a role in formulating the policy, but the operationalization it's not within our mandate.
And I have to beg your pardon now, because I'm struggling to keep up with the argument that you are not able to tell us how much gold we've been able to put into the reserve. You are not able to tell us how much gold we spent for this 40,000 metric tons of oil. Are you able to say whether we actually use the barter system or the brokerage system for this?
You fall within the same temptation of thinking that we have some gold.
Do we or don't we?
But we don't. That's the point.
So what did we exchange for this oil is what I'm trying to understand.
Wait. I will explain. But for the gold purchase program that the Bank of Ghana initiated in 2021, the total stock of gold that Ghana has or had was only 8 kilograms. 8. That translated to 292 ounces. So let it not be seen or the impression created out there that, oh, Ghana has some gold that is sitting, that somebody is using to fund petroleum imports. That's the point that I want to make.
So are we buying this fuel?
Hold on. Of course, it's being bought. And you've read the NPA document, I suppose. And you would see clearly from the framework that PMMC has been mandated to then buy the gold, which ordinarily gold exporters would have exported, and then generate the forex outside Ghana that may never find itself back in country. So if they buy the city, if they buy the gold here in city, that then enables Bank of Ghana to use that to pay for the commodity. Exactly what happened. You want me to tell you that, well, we got X number of gold and we paid X amount of money, and I'm telling you that that information is not within my custody. How is that a difficulty, my good sister?
It's not. I'm just asking the questions that the ordinary person on the street would want answers to. Because from where I sit, you as a deputy minister would have better information than I do. And we can always come to you for clarity.
I agree. The information that I have, I'm speaking to it with you. The one that is not within my purview, because obviously it is operational and I don't work at the Bank of Ghana, I wouldn't know. And I've said it to you that I don't know. It's not within my purview, so I don't have it.
Let's get to the policy document, and we are talking about some of the program process flow and some of the requirements. A concern has been raised about the means, which is the barter trade of broker channel. Could you explain to us the difference between the two?
So the whole notion of doing the two channel was to ensure that we do not limit our supply sources, okay? Because there are commodity traders that trade in multiple commodities, oil, gold, flour, sugar, all sorts of things. And so for those kinds of commodity traders, you can do a direct barter with them, value to value, and they would have a means of monetizing it for their own purpose, or even keeping it or whatever. For some commodity traders, they do only petroleum products. And so if you do a direct swap with them, they wouldn't understand. So in order not to limit your supply sources, we needed to create an avenue under the program that allowed Bank of Ghana to then monetize it to pay for the commodity. It's a very simple, straightforward matter with respect.
So it's the Bank of Ghana that will be leading the purchase of the gold and not,
Absolutely.
For example, the PMMC?
Well, the PMMC has channels, outlets in Ghana that then buys gold on behalf of the Bank of Ghana.
And again, we'll have to find out from the Bank of Ghana what processes they are putting in place to make these collaborations possible, right?
So a committee was put up that had representation from all the key institutions that then formulated the policy, the framework of which you are holding. Okay, and so each agency has its role that it is playing. And, as you can see clearly, the gold purchase program is being run by Bank of Ghana. That then, because it is the central bank and it's responsible for the management of Ghana's reserves, would be in a position to then externalize the gold and, as it were, use it to fund the petroleum products, so that our key objectives, which are mainly two: energy security and also taking some element of pressure of the forex, can be achieved.
Is this something you expect to continue, this arrangement of bringing in oil via the barter system that you did in this first consignment?
So we've done a test which had a few issues that needed to be resolved. It's been resolved. And my expectation is that when we roll it out and the program works well, then we have to continue. Because, look, today, petroleum products, petrol and diesel at the pumps, is being sold at a significantly higher FX rate than what the FX rate is today. Why? Because the BDCs anticipate that the depreciation may get to a point where by the time that they sell all the products and have to go back to buy new stocks, they would not be able to generate what their cost was. And so, for example, if they brought a commodity in at 10.50 to the dollar, they would forward price the foreign exchange and sell it at 15 to the dollar. Now, if the dollar or the cedi gets to 15, well, then of course, net off. But if it doesn't get there, the Ghanaian consumer is paying the differential spread that really should be staying in their pockets. And so the intent of the program is to ensure that there's some stability such that consumers don't have to pay for the differential in the FX rates that the BDCs would ordinarily use. And that would translate into some savings. But of course, the policy and the program has to work well so that you and I can derive the benefit that is associated with it.
Honorable, if you just hold on to the line there for me,
sure.
I want to pick the thoughts of some of my other panel members, and then we'll get back to you for further clarification. Deputy Energy Minister Itepa Mensah speaking to us on phone. On Zoom, Mr. Janso, if you may, let me pick Adam's thoughts quickly. As a policy and research analyst at the Institute of Energy Security, Adam, what are your thoughts on this new program?
Yes, so good morning to you and good morning to my co-panelists. My earlier thought or the impression we are getting is that government keeps changing its position, because when the policy was first announced, the government made it clear they are swapping petroleum products for gold. And we quickly raised alarm that this is not something that is workable in the long run, because the major issue facing us in the industry is the issue of the currency, largely because the petroleum prices or the crude prices are not stable. They move. There are times we make some gains, that is prices drop. There are times we make some losses, that is prices rise. And so when that happens, clearly our cedi is not so strong, or often on the depreciating side, to enjoy prices that are falling on the international market. So government announces a program that seeks to solve this problem. But the policy till date is not still very clear with actors within the sector. And we are picking signals, or if I get what Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister is saying, the deregulation regime we introduced in 2015, which is one of the competitive regimes in the industry, is clearly being thrown out of the books. And so government is seeking to meddle with prices, which is not a sustainable way. Government in the long run could lead us into a situation where we return to the issue of fuel shortages at the pumps. And so we think that there is the need to still consider the policy. So much should still go into the thinking. And so these are my initial thoughts, that the deregulation regime we are operating currently is being attacked and is being kicked out of the books. Yeah.
Fine. Adam, let me pick Mr. Janto's thoughts. Honorable Deputy Minister,
if you permit me, let me respond to these so that we can take Mr.
Okay,
Jantwa.
so deregulation, is it being thrown out the window?
Not at all, because if you look at the NPA document, of course, there's a transition, okay, during which time there has to be some intervention by the regulator to ensure that people do not pass on the savings to their private pockets, but that the consumer actually gets benefit. And so it is within that transition period that the NPA has clearly stated that it's going to determine the prices. How does that amount to throwing the deregulation policy away? I mean, with all due respect, let's be very clear, okay? And look, government is not changing its position, okay? But for the gold, which is a factor in this entire debate or conversation, you could not even get the forex to then pay for whatever commodity. I've said to you that yes, and I'm not shy to admit that right from the very beginning, the intent was to do a direct swap. But of course, that was not the policy, because we're developing the policy. And the idea, the notion, and things had come up for all sorts of permutations. And so, at the time that we formulated the policy, we clearly were clear in our minds that we were doing these two channels that have then resulted in where we are today. So, it's not a change at all.
Let me pick Mr. Janto's thoughts, and then we'll be back to get into other areas of the proposal. So this is what the Deputy Minister for Energy is saying. The government is not changing its position. He does admit that we do not have physical gold. We are not taking gold to get oil in return, and that there's an arrangement. Do you find that it's working, considering the prices at the pumps have gone up rather than down, which is one of the goals for this program?
Good morning to our viewers. Good morning, Honorable Mesa and my other panelists. When did Vice President Bawumia introduce us? What date was this?
Sometime last month. I think the first or second
in
week
January.
Yeah.
So it means they had actually thought about it before the Vice President came to talk about it. That is what I would interpret it to mean. They had sat, they discussed it, because in his presentation he actually indicated that they had thought about things, they discussed it. Now, once they discussed it, why didn't they put the policy in place first before coming to tell us. Because if you look at this framework, it's dated 3rd February, and it presupposes that they quickly put the document together when they got opposition from CSOs and others asking the questions. So be it. They've put the framework together. Now, this framework that has been put together, when you look at it, there are some, and Thelma, let me say, for me, if it's good for Ghana, I don't have a problem. If it is something that can move forward and good for Ghana, I don't have a problem. The major challenge I have is the fact that there is lack of effective communication, effective transparency and accountability. That is the challenge I have. And I believe if from the word go, this particular policy was taken to Parliament, i.e. 1815, and Parliament took it on, it went to the requisite committee for discussion, I would have felt a better understanding would be got from it. Government is struggling because they didn't bring others on board to look at the document because it's long term. Look, today I'm a very, very sad man. Why am I a very, very sad man? I was listening to the Zimbabwean president and some of the things they've done when this whole pandemic, if I can call it pandemic, Ukraine war, all these things started. They have achieved it. They are doing their own fertilizer, own wheat. They'll be able to export wheat next year. They were getting fertilizer from Russia. They were getting wheat from Ukraine. They are doing all that. Why didn't we sit back and say to ourselves, let's see if within our circles, environment, we can look at some of these things and produce for ourselves. We have Tamale refinery. We have oil. Why didn't we start from that premise and decided to start from this premise? I have a list of the countries, the 10 largest countries that produce gold in Africa. Ghana has the lowest. If you want me to read it to you, I will tell you. Algeria, the first African country with the largest holding with 174 metric tons. South Africa follows closely, 125 metric tons. Libya, 117 metric tons. Egypt, 80.6 metric tons. Morocco, 22.12 metric tons. Nigeria, 21.37 metric tons. Mauritius, 12.44 metric tons. Ghana has 8.74 metric tons. And we are number one in Africa, aren't we? Aren't we? Why should it be so? And remember, the kind of gold currency they are using, they are not gold bars. If you read the document,
I've come across the expression
Dory bars. Dory bars.
I want to understand this Dory bars a bit better. How is this different from the other type of gold bars that the other countries are
Dory
using?
bars are normally used by, I would say manufactured by, if I want to use that word, by small-scale miners. They get the gold dust and then they refine it into small bars. And you know, quite a quantum of those bars. I have it on my phone here. I'll show you later.
To get an actual gold bar.
To get an actual gold bar. And you need a lot of them. You need a lot of them to be able to make the kind of you're looking for. Hence, MPA, BOST, government are saying that, and PMMC are saying that all the small-scale production they would have to buy. Because if we were selling the huge bars that the oil company, the mining companies are making, we would get a huge quantum of it. But it's not oil bars.
Right.
And in that case too, you are also controlling the small-scale market. So those who are producing, they cannot do their normal exports.
Let's put some of those concerns to the Deputy Minister. Perhaps he may have some clarity to offer on the issues. Honorable Mensah, what was the extent of engagements or deliberations which fed into the issuing of this document?
Yeah, well, of course, I indicated to you that there was a committee that was put together that had all the key stakeholders from NPA, from the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, from the Ministry of Energy, Bank of Ghana, and then, of course, the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors were also present in deliberating on the policy. But to answer directly to my senior brother, Kwame, I, on the 19th of January, sent a message when Alex Mould was on Ravi Abe's Good Morning Ghana and indicated to the Randy that the gold oil had two modules, okay? The direct swap for gold and oil, and also Bank of Ghana monetizing the gold to pay for it. So clearly, it is not a document that, yes, the final document was released dated 3rd February for good reason. We needed to go through the test to see whether it was workable, so that all the issues that potentially could arise then feeds into the document that then comes out, which then was released yesterday. Forgive me, I'm panting. I just climbed the flight of stairs, you know. So that's where we are. So it is not the case that government has hurriedly put together a document because civil society organizations were asking questions. That's not the case. Okay. Now, I really am struggling, and I say so with a lot of humility. Where is the lack of accountability and transparency that I hear people make reference to? Where is the lack of accountability? Where? See, prior to the introduction of this policy, BDCs, including BOST, go out there and source the commodities and also the dollar to fund it. No issue. And when they come, they forward price, and you and I pay. Now, government then sets thinks of how we get energy security, which is, and then also find a way to see how Bank of Ghana can then take away some of the impact on the dollar. All of a sudden becomes an issue that is shrouded in secrecy. I frankly don't get it. That the financial intermediation that Bank of Ghana is playing, that it has played consistently over the years, now has to go to Bank of Parliament under Article 1815. All of a sudden becomes an international business transaction that requires parliamentary approval.
Honourable Minister, because you've mentioned Mr. Mould, he's requesting an opportunity to also respond because his name has come up on the table.
May I? But what I'm saying is not a response. But if I do not understand, it is not a response.
Perhaps because he wants to explain it himself.
I'm saying to you that both purchasing of petroleum products hasn't changed. It's the suppliers that he engages on a regular basis to buy commodities from. That they're saying today that, hey, rather than dollar, can we pay you through our central bank gold? That doesn't require parliamentary approval.
Honourable, you've admitted to us that there was no actual gold exchanged for the fuel, right?
You see,
how much exactly
I haven't admitted that to you. What I said to you was that the program had two channels. Now, all the channel is arising out of the gold program, which is being used to fund the gold for oil.
But there is no actual gold involved here.
There is actual gold involved that has been bought by Bank of Ghana, that Bank of Ghana has externalized under this stream. And of course, some of the commodity products that are coming in are actually being done on a direct, straight pattern.
So in monetary terms, how much money did we exchange for 40,000 metric tons of
$40
oil?
million.
$40 million.
Of course.
And
So
$40 million for 40,000 metric
brother,
tons
Kwame,
of fuel.
Mr.
Mr. Jantua is listening, sir. Yeah.
Look, I agree. Zimbabwe, yes. But Ghana also had some pluses arising out of COVID. Okay, Ghana has some pluses. In fact, even before the Russia-Ukraine war started, the government policy of free crop was intended to yield the kinds of things that Zimbabwe is touting today. Planting for food and jobs was intended to yield the kinds of things that we are all talking about today. Okay, I've heard people talk about, oh, you needed to select, but of course, the Planting for Food and Jobs program is a selected program which is targeted at certain products or farm produce. So, yes, maybe we are not communicating sufficiently enough because there are several other issues that we are confronted with at the same time. So then you probably then have to spread your attention, across all those segments. And so maybe it's not being touted loud enough. But of course, we're doing our very best to ensure that we bring some relief to our consumers under this program. And I don't see how all of a sudden it becomes a question of parliamentary approval and all those kinds of things. I mean, I frankly don't see it at all.
Mr. Jantua has some further comments to put to you, sir. So if you just continue holding on for us.
The Honourable Minister indicated that we paid $40 million for 40,000 metric tons. Was it 41,000 metric tons?
40,000.
40,000 metric tons. If that is the case, what price did we buy it at? Some of us are in this business. And 40,000 metric tons at the present moment, we're looking at, and I don't know the figure, I'm only talking about what I'm dealing with. It's about...
Well, Kwame, I can assure you that there was plus minus. The premium was really at the different. My understanding is that they paid a premium of $40 per what you call it, metric ton, okay, for the commodity. And so you can do the math. The 40 million may not be exact, and I must admit, I don't have the figures in front of me, but from all the conversations that I've heard, it should be around that figure, really. And you can do the math, but there was a significant premium reduction that we got, that we are asking everybody else who wants to supply petroleum products to Ghana to compete on that front. Yes.
If that is the case, then it means the price they're getting it at is slightly lower than the price that some of us are selling at, because a tanker vessel of 40,000 metric tons is going between $750 and $800 a metric ton. We have one right now in the Ghanaian waters, so I know what the price is. But if that is what he's saying, then perhaps they have a special arrangement. But I also spoke with the boss, MD, some time back when this entire thing started, because one was interested in trying to do some of this business. And he did say to me that, look, Kwame, I don't think you can compete because of the prices that we are getting it for. And I then asked him, so what is the objective? And he indicated to me that the objective was to bring BDCs in line with what they were doing in terms of reducing the BDC prices. That's why they have supplied some of the BDCs and the petrol garages. But then I asked the question, what about the likes of BP, Shell, Energies, who also bring refined petroleum products in? And in fact, BP and Shell, when they bring it in, they sell it in quantities of 5,000 metric tons spread over a number of BDCs. are we going to be able to are they going to be able to compete favorably? And if they are not able to compete favorably, how does that look like going forward if we do not continue this particular issue? Now, you see, I think the argument isn't gold for oil. I think that isn't the argument. The argument is more the process in which we are doing gold for oil. So one, how did you select the buyer criteria? Two, and this is what civil society has been asking, absence of supplier selection criteria and respect of supplying petroleum products, non-disclosure of pricing policy of Ghana's, how much are we buying the gold for? And then you have to bear in mind, Bank of Ghana hasn't told us where the money is coming from to purchase the gold from PMMC. Where is that money coming from? The money then goes into, let's say, the trader side, not the barter side, goes into the trader side. Traders, they charge for doing these things. How much are we paying? It goes into an escrow. That escrow is what we use to purchase. It then goes through the same cycle. But you see, the Bank of Ghana is in a strategic position where, if the risk is not looked at properly, can collapse it. That risk should be looked at seriously. And we are saying, just be open with that. For me, it could be a good program, but let's see the steps that are being taken. And let's see how best. And you ask the question, if foreign exchange reserves, and we are doing gold for oil, that means we can do it for everything. Can we not? Apart from using it for oil, we can use it for everything. We can sell gold and use the proceeds to do other things so that we don't go through the exchange rate fluctuations. Maybe it is something Ghana should consider.
Because you mentioned something about risk for the Bank of Ghana, let's put it to the researcher and the policy analyst. Adam Yakubu is still on our Zoom platform. Adam, I just want to pick your thoughts. Mr. Jantwa is expressing a concern that the Bank of Ghana could, if care is not taken and this is not well structured, could face some risks in implementing this policy. Do you think that's a real thing, and how can we prevent such from happening? Adam, are you with us? Well, I was hoping that Mr. Yakubu could help us, because he's into more of the research. He could tell us where the danger signals could be for the Bank of Ghana. And if the Zoom platform cooperates, I'm sure that he'll be able to share some thoughts with us. But the Deputy Minister is still on our phone lines, and so I'll put some of the other concerns that have come up to you. The outlook for other OMCs in the market, i.e. others who are also into the same business, now that you're bringing in petroleum products, what's the promise for them, and what's also the criteria for selecting the brokers and the buyers in this case?
Well, let me first deal with the issue of the BTCs. I mean, obviously, if the intent is to do 50% of the market through this arrangement, what it means is that there's 50% that is available for the BDCs to participate in. Okay, for the Shells and Glencores and Vitals of this world who are not participating in the gold for it. And I must indicate that what you call it, Trafigura and all Vitor have all indicated an interest in participating in the program. And so the seller selection really is the same IOTs that supply petroleum products to BDCs in Ghana on a daily basis that is participating in the program. These are the same sellers, which is open. That's why we have 2 channels under the program. We have other commodity rings that can accept gold directly, then accept those that are not, other commodity oriented, who then have to be paid. Then the gold is monetized through the broker to pay for that commodity. Okay, and so the obviously the intent is not to stifle the private sector. But Kwame, you and I believe you agree with me that if we are able to get the Bank of Ghana then to provide some stable forex, because 50% of the pressure for forex has eased, then BDCs who go to Bank of Ghana will get the dollar to import and would sell the product at a relatively decent price of, say, $11, assuming the dollar was 10 cedi to the dollar, as opposed to pricing of 15, 16 that the Ghanaian consumer is saddled with. And so clearly that would yield some results in that regard. Okay, so I don't think that we should be, of course, I mean, the reason why I'm aware that the policy framework was not issued right from the very beginning, and I've articulated this, was to address some of these concerns that arose or still are coming up, so that we can have a policy that then, is beneficial to all of us.
Because we're still on the issue of the Bank of Ghana, Mr. Jantua asked a question or raised a concern and said, where is the Bank of Ghana getting the money to put into this? Because there's monies coming from somewhere.
Of course, it's the same operational issue that you want me, sitting at the Energy Ministry, to speak for Bank of Ghana.
Because you gave me the impression that because the committee was created and certain stakeholders were involved, all of you may have been privy to some information. I'm just trying to find out if you can tell us something in that regard.
I'm not in a position to.
Okay, so can we talk about the selection criteria?
Selection criteria of what?
For the brokers who are going to be engaged in this.
It's the same Bank of Ghana. It's Bank of Ghana that then did the appointment of broker that then opens metal account for it and all that. So really, it's not within the Energy Ministry's review. Like I said, our role and function really was to ensure that we are able to, if you like, broker an arrangement that then allows us to assure commodity of petroleum products on the market at some relatively reduced price that would benefit.
So is it going to be a monthly thing, a bi-monthly thing? How often are we supposed to receive consignments of this
oil? It's a must-go energy operational, demands, requirements that constantly they do. That's not going to change. My understanding is that the NPA is working with them to ensure that we ramp up to about 50% of the market by March. What it means is that more of the commodity is going to come in under the program, and that's what's going to happen.
I wonder if any of our panel members, before we wrap, have any more concerns. And I know that Yakubu is also still on the line. Adam, are you still with us? The Zoom platform appears to be having some challenges. I hope that you've been following these conversations closely, and I wonder what your thoughts are at this point. Has your position changed since the initial submission by the minister? I think we're still having challenges. Kwame, you had a few questions.
Dama, you see, if we're not careful, this can also collapse the BDCs. Remember, the BDCs have cost. And the costs for the BDCs sometimes are high. So if you bring a price which is controlled and they can't make the returns that they make to keep their businesses alive, what happens? 2, government has always said private sector is the engine of growth. Private sector is the engine of growth. Why is government getting into this kind of transaction? Wouldn't it have been better if government decided to use gold, but then the money that they got, they used it to support the BDCs under strict monitoring? And what do I mean by under strict monitoring? Although you're supporting the BDCs, make the negotiations and you agree with who they are buying from, and you pay direct through government. You don't give the physical money to the BDCs, but you pay direct. The same way when they were doing the N1, and I think that either the World Bank or the IMF, one of them, they didn't give the money to government. They paid the contractors direct from Washington. We could have done that to keep the BDCs still alive and to some degree make sure that the negotiations and the prices that they're bringing it in are well enough to bring petrol prices down. But government has now jumped into it. Government is now a commercial buyer of refined petroleum products. They are competing with the BDCs. How do you then make sure?
But Kwame, I mean, let's not stretch this. Okay, with respect, I mean, I don't think that anybody intends to, as it were, stifle private sector in the Ghanaian economy. After all, we are partners, and the BDCs are the ones who have, since President Kufuor's era when it was introduced, complemented what it is that the state agencies have been doing consistently over the years. Now, 50% of the market then means that there is still the complementary role.
But they can't compete.
You're sure about that?
Can they compete? If the prices are lower,
the minister,
how do they compete?
So, Honorable Deputy Minister, was that an option? Could that have been one of the solutions to support the OMCs so that they can compete favorably in the market? I think we may have lost the minister there, but Mr. Alex Mould is joining us now on the phone lines. Sir, good morning. Thank you for joining us. You listened to the Honorable Deputy Minister talking about this government plan, Gold for Oil, and you had a few remarks to make about his submission.
Is that me you're talking to?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mould. That would be you.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for calling in. I really appreciate that. First of all, we have to understand what government wants to achieve from this gold for oil transaction and break it down very, very, simply for our viewers. One is government wants to reduce the price of petroleum products. And in doing so, government is saying that if we take our gold and we barter foreign exchange, we can buy petroleum products, and as such, there will not be pressure on the our CD to buy foreign exchange, and the foreign exchange price will stabilize. The CD price of the foreign exchange will stabilize, and that is what they are saying. But the fact of the matter is that all revenue from gold exports via large-scale, small-scale community miners accrues to and is brought back into this country through Bank of Ghana and the commercial banks. The only exception are those mining companies, especially big ones, that government has to approve or has approved some remittance hold back on some of their remittances. So this means that the small-scale miners, all their revenue comes back to this country. So there is not going to be a change in the amount of foreign exchange we get from the small-scale miners, except that portion that is being smuggled. It is not the Gold for Oil program that is going to curtail the smuggling. What is going to curtail the smuggling is government's will to stop smuggling. That means that all the agencies involved in this smuggling, and there are a lot of government agencies involved in the smuggling. You can't smuggle without government agencies involved. We'll have to set up, government will have to let them all sit up so we stop the smuggling. If that is the case, then government will increase the amount of revenue or the amount of dollars that accrues into this country. That is if government stops the smuggling. But if things continue as it is, then it's a zero-sum.
Mr. Alex Mould is the former Chief Executive of the GNPC, also trying to explain this policy clearly to us. I wish that the Zoom connection had stayed on a bit longer, because as a former GNPC boss, he understands perhaps the concerns of the OMCs that you raised, and I would have wanted to know what he thought this would mean for the future of that industry.
And he's also being a boss for NPA.
And the NPA is directly involved, because BOST and the NPA, according to the paper issued by the government, are those entities that are to ensure that the cedi proceeds from the sale of imported petroleum products will be collected and deposited with a collection bank in favor of BOG, and the collection is required to transfer collected funds into the BOG's G40 proceeds account within 48 hours. So there's a lot for NPA and BOST to do with regards to this channel. But what I still have not received an answer to is what PMMC's position would be in the middle of all this. And I wonder if the Honorable Deputy Minister is still on the line, because I'm looking at a certain chart that's been put in the government paper, and it seems that there's a gold broker in there, and then there's a Bank of Ghana, some suppliers, BOST is involved, the BDCs are there, there's a collection bank, and then PMMC, there's this arrow that is pointing. I'm not quite clear how PMMC is being roped into all this, but an unending conversation there. We've engaged some minds on this gold for oil policy, and we'll continue to engage some more. Mr. Mould has joined us on our phone platform because he still wants to make his point very clear. Thank you for reconnecting with us.
Yes, thank you very much for calling me back. I tried to call myself, and it wasn't. I was saying that the intent really is not to stifle the private sector. Of course, the chamber was represented at the committee. Some issues have arisen. Obviously, there's still going to be engagement so that there's sufficient enough supply of petroleum products on the market for the Ghanaian consumer, and we cannot work without our private sector players. So let me assure the private sector BDC operators, including my good friend and senior brother Kwame, that government doors are open. We'll still engage to see how we can arrive at some alignment if what the program as has been advertised today doesn't meet all your expectations. We can still work together to see where we are so that you guys can still be in business, because yes, we believe that the private sector should be the engine of growth. But Kwame, if you would, BOST has been operating as a commercial entity for years, and that function hasn't changed, even though it's owned. So it cannot be suggested then, therefore, that government has taken over.
So when do you expect a drop, Honorable Deputy Minister? When do you expect an actual drop at the pumps?
Well, if you care to know, those who have some of the commodities have some marginal reduction in their prices. But of course, you had a situation where they have to commingle the gold for oil products with already existing stocks. And so the reduction was marginal. In any event, the gold for oil commodity that came in was in the region of some 10%. And so if the ramp up to the 50% by March happens, all things being equal, I must be emphatic on that, all things being equal, because if the price of the commodity changes tomorrow, obviously the price will go up. But the impact then that would have based on this policy, like I said to you, is in the region of some 20-25%, which we expect to be the benefit that the consumer gets. Yes.
I would have one more question for you, but Mr. Jantua has one more concern, and he wants to ask you this now.
Honorable, we all know that the initial establishment of BOST wasn't for BOST to be a commercial entity.
Yes, I know.
It was meant exactly to stop. Yes, but because they weren't getting government stipends and government investment in there, they were forced. Should that particular status still be?
Well, I mean, that's why I said that it's been a commercial entity operating in the same space for years.
Yeah, but they are not meant to be, Honorable. They are not meant to be.
Yes, I agree. I mean, if of course, the question then would be whether the strategic stock gets up to fit or that they ought to turn it over periodically. Okay, so yes, by all means, if our refinery comes back on stream, if the private sector is playing its role, then I believe that we can redefine again what the scope and work that force is supposed to do.
Will you
we can have the full complement.
Okay, will you then agree with me that if BOST was still just holding on to strategic stocks and they went to the commercial field, it would be the BDCs who would have taken the place of this particular transaction?
The dynamics would have changed.
Exactly.
Honorable Deputy Minister, would save a place for you at this table to come to us for further conversations on this policy. I want to understand the role of PMMC in all this, and we could not get into that. I want to understand what the future for even the Tema Oil Refinery is now that we are doing this program as well. And so there's a seat here for you. Do take it and answer some more of our questions. Thank you so much for your time.
I'll probably be able to answer that question for you.
Okay,
PMMC
so
bit.
Honorable, thank you for joining us, and I'm sure we will see you again very, very, very soon.
So far as I know, I've been to PMMC to find out what their role is, and their role is to get the gold in and purchase. That's their role, and government wanted to use them because agency and it's strategic for government, and that's what PMMC.
Because there's a model that is contained in this government paper that was released just a couple of days ago,
PMMC.
And you only see a connection between the Bank of Ghana and the PMMC.
Yes.
Whereas the Bank of Ghana has the links to like supplier 1, supplier 2, and even the gold broker, and it goes into some kind of labyrinth, and it goes back.
So the Bank of Ghana's responsibility with PMMC is to provide the CDs for them to purchase the gold. From that point on, the Bank of Ghana now follows. If it's a trader, say it's a trader, and then the money goes into an escrow account, the Bank of Ghana escrow account, with which they use to now buy the petroleum products.
Okay, I understand Mr. Mould has joined us once again on the telephone lines. Welcome back.
I'm back.
Thank you so much. So the minister has been trying to explain, and you talked about the agenda, which is to get the prices reduced at the pumps. Do you think that this is an effective means to do that while still protecting the interests of the OMCs?
Yes. What I was saying before the line got cut was that no new foreign exchange is going to accrue to Ghana because the small-scale miners already, all their export proceeds accrue through Bank of Ghana or through the commercial banking system in this country. So basically what we're going to do by government buying the gold from the small-scale miners is we're going to now eliminate the licensed exporters from selling the gold. And the government is going to take over. So the bottom line is there is a zero-sum game and no additional gold will be sold. Increase the amount of gold that is sold in this country. And that can only come from them curtailing the smuggling. So it will just be a redistribution of the export proceeds accruing to the licensed exporters and to Bank of Ghana via PMMC. Now, PMMC originally was set up to coordinate the sale of gold by the small-scale miners in this country. For some reason, down the line, PMMC was not as efficient, and we brought in the licensed exporters who did the same thing as PMMC. And these exporters have been doing this for a while. The gold they export, the revenue comes back to Ghana via Bank of Ghana or via the commercial banking system. So it is not like because of this gold for oil program, we are now going to be getting the foreign exchange that the small small-scale miners have been through the exports. It's not true. It's been coming through Bank of Ghana. So we're not going to see any incremental foreign exchange coming through Bank of Ghana from the small-scale miners. The only time we will see that is if the government stops the smuggling going on. Now, the question is, why is there smuggling? And why has the government not been able to curtail the smuggling?
That's a question that we need to answer. I think that will also save you a seat at the table. Petroleum issues are the heartstrings of the nation, and we would want to have you in studio so you can explain some of these things a bit more to us.
But the most important thing that I want to add here is that we are using BOST, who doesn't have a license to import petroleum products into this country. BOST has a license to import strategic stocks into this country. So that has to be fixed as well. Right. There will be no significant pump price change unless we experience a 10 to 20% change in the crude oil price or an exchange rate drop from about 12.5, which the commercial banks are selling, to 11, which Bank of Ghana is selling. So if Bank of Ghana can sell at 11 all the importers of petroleum products in this country, why is it not doing so? Because all the foreign exchange that comes into this country is channeled to Bank of Ghana or the commercial banking system, which Bank of Ghana controls, but Ghana is the regulator. So we need just to make sure that Bank of Ghana can allocate foreign exchange for the import of petroleum products. It is not the gold purchasing program that is going to give us incremental foreign exchange in this country. That is a fallacy, and I'm waiting for the numbers for government to prove to us that we have increased the amount of gold we are selling in this country, or we are increasing the amount of foreign exchange, because all exports by small-scale miners have to, their proceeds have to pass through Bank of Ghana and have been passing through Bank of Ghana. The problem has been Bank of Ghana has not been allocating this foreign exchange to the importation of petroleum products. They are now saying that they are going to do that, but they want to control both the export of gold and the import of petroleum products into this country by introducing new players and by using the government machinery, government policy, government regulators to muscle out the existing players to do that. Whereas we will not be seeing any significant decrease in the petroleum price that's going to happen. They are bringing in new players whom I am very sure have influence in this government, and that is what they want to do. They want to use the policy of gold for oil to legitimize them bringing in players so that they can have market share in the export of gold and also in the import of petroleum products.
That's a rather very forward statement, and it's taken like a direct crack at the government, hinting at ulterior motives here. Do you have any information to suggest that that is the case?
Well, first of all, like I said, there is no incremental foreign exchange accruing by this gold for oil program, unless government now is going to curtail smuggling. Now, they can curtail smuggling without gold for oil business. So why is government doing this? And you have to go to the motive of why this is being done. And the motive is very simple. They want to control the export of gold in this country. Not government, but...
Mr. Alex Mould is the former chief of Ghana GNPC. Are you still with us, Mr. Mould?
Yes, I am.
If you would wrap up for us very quickly, please.
Yes. They will have to make the bidding processes very transparent, as my friend Kwame Jantua has said. First of all, who will be the importer of record? Is it BOST or a BDC? Will the bidding be advertised? Who will be invited? Will the only international oil companies be invited, or the indigenous BDC? Will it be an open bid or not? Will the results be published? If government is prepared to do all of these things, then it shows that there will be transparency. And it's going to be an open, fair competition, which is what we need in this country. With regards to the gold, we will need to know at what price they're selling the gold. Because it's when you say you're doing barter, you're selling the gold at a certain price. and you are buying the oil at a certain price. So there's no difference between and the cash, what's it called, the cash alternative or the cash channel that they are proposing. It's the same thing, whether you do barter or whether you sell the gold for cash and use the cash to buy products. The bottom line is that at what price is gold being sold, and at what price petroleum products are being sold. Petroleum products in this country currently are being landed in this country at about $850 to $900 per metric ton. If you then land it at $1,000 per metric ton, that means that you're above market. So we need to also see exactly where the market price is, what is the supplier's premium to land the product into the country. One of the things I think we will benefit by all of this is that we will see more efficiencies in the downstream sector. We will see BDCs not days credits, but using 30 days credits. We will also see oil marketing companies not holding on to the money they get from the sale of petroleum products. And they will be, I don't think that any oil marketing company should use more than 1 month to pay back the BDC for supplying its product.
Mr. Mo, thank you so much.
14 days is what we use at an oil refinery.
Thank you for your inputs for the program this morning. We're very grateful for your contributions. We hope that we get the opportunity to engage with you once again, as this program is an ongoing one. Mr. Jantwa, your final comments in about a minute, and then we would have to wrap.
I think it's a bit not disingenuous, but it doesn't breed confidence when you ask a minister, you ask the Bank of Ghana, and there doesn't seem to be any connection, people knowing what everybody is doing. If they're working as a team, everybody knows what is happening. You remember the first deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Maxwell Opoku Aferi, indicated that he didn't know how much we were paying for the refined petroleum products. So if for nothing at all, they should sing from one hymn sheet, so that everybody knows there's coordination. But if the minister says, Bank of Ghana, I don't know what is happening there. Bank of Ghana says, I don't know how this, I don't think that breeds confidence.
Right.
If it is a policy and a particular a program that can benefit us, the key thing there is to be transparent and open and communicate effectively, so that we all get to support it if it's going to help the country move forward.
Kwame Jantwa, energy expert, thank you for your insights on this program this morning. I want to say a very special thank you also to Adam Yakobo, Research and Policy Analyst, Institute for Energy Security. The Zoom platform has not been kind to you today, but we did get the benefit of some input from you, and we are really very grateful. Thank you for making the time. Thank you as well to Mr. Alex Mould, who also joined us on the Zoom platform, and later on the phone lines, former chief executive of the GNPC. Also, thank you, Deputy Minister for Energy, Honorable Ejapa Mensah, for your contributions. And we hope that these conversations will continue. Connect via our social media platforms at GTV Ghana. And thank you for joining the chats as well. Happy birthday shouts to Melissa Dromonetti from your parents. You are at the Integrity International School. Also to Malaika Osei from Wendy Cranting here at GBC. So key shouts to you. Mr. and Mrs. Nete from the sound department of GBC, they're sending you that key shout, Melissa. So congratulations. And if you are up and about tomorrow morning, we'll join you once again at 5:55 right here on GTV Breakfast. I'm Thelma Taki. Good morning.